Welcome to On the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And it is the day before opening day here on March 31st. Tomorrow, the Orioles will open the season at Fenway Park against the Boston Red Sox, with opening day at home coming on April 8th. So on today's show, we're going to talk about our predictions for the regular season. As you know, we love to make predictions on this show. And the predictions for this episode are going to be focused on the Major League season, but with a bend towards some of the younger players that we expect to see. We'll also get into who we think will lead the team in certain categories. And of course, you can't get through predictions without predicting the World Series. So we will do that. In addition, we're going to run down a transaction that occurred at the end of spring that has led to a surprising opening in the Orioles starting lineup. But first, On the Verge is brought to you courtesy of Mercer Floor and Home Carpet One. Mercer is a third-generation family business that was established in 1959 and is located on Main Street in beautiful historic downtown Westminster, Maryland. For all of your flooring needs, think Mercer. Over the weekend, the Orioles made a move that kind of came as a surprise, I think, to a lot of fans and a lot of observers of the team. They picked up Adam Plutko from the Cleveland Indians in a move that gives them an extra long reliever going into the regular season. In the process, though, in order to clear a 40-man roster spot for Plutko, they designated Yolmer Sanchez for assignment. Sanchez ultimately cleared waivers and has been released. All throughout the offseason and for most of spring training, Sanchez, who was a waiver pickup back in the fall, had been expected to be the starting second baseman on opening day for the Orioles and probably demand a position for most of the year. But now he's no longer in the organization, and even less than 24 hours from opening day, we're still not really sure how things are going to shake out at second base and just who the Orioles are going to go with. So I'll start with Nick. I guess really a twofold reaction here. First to the pickup of Adam Plutko and then to the loss of Yolmer Sanchez.
I mean, with Plutko, he's an arm. Michael Elias said, I think it was after one of the last spring training games, that every pitcher, if you're on the 40-man roster, you're going to see time on the mound this year, plus some other arms. So that's exciting for us, guys that follow the minor leagues, getting to see guys, not just Zach Lothar, Alex Wells, Michael Baumann, but maybe some other guys. And I think it also means if you're like a fringe roster guy on another team and you have starting experience, like if you get DFA'd, don't worry. Like Michael Elias is probably going to swoop in and grab you up. But Plutko, just looking at some of his numbers that I pulled up, 217 big league innings, a 5.05 career ERA, and a 5.57 FIP. So not great. The strikeouts really aren't there. But if you look at his ZiPS, the Fangraphs projections have him at 110 innings, about 7 Ks per game, and a 5.39 ERA, at a 0.7 wins above replacement value. So I think if he sticks around long enough and puts up those kind of numbers, you really can't complain. I know right after the signing, I found the story on MLB.com. Mandy Ball, who covers Cleveland over there, Mandy noted that Plutko actually ditched his slider, even though if you look him up on Baseball Savant, it still has it as a slider, even though he said it was a cutter for the last year or so. But he learned to bring the slider back from Shane Bieber and talked with him. I can't think of anybody else better in the American League, really, to talk about bringing a new pitch back. But maybe it's something, it's a step. But for right now, he had a really good spring, 11 strikeouts in 9 innings, only walked 2. Take those for what you will, but he's an arm. We'll see how long he lasts. With Sanchez, it was definitely shocking. But after a weekend of like the Ruiz, Valleca, and Sanchez debates on Twitter and stuff, like I just don't care anymore. Like hopefully we get a serviceable option from Jahmai Jones, Rylan Bannon, maybe Richie Martin even at some point. But I guess my guess is just that the Orioles didn't like what they saw out of Sanchez defensively. And so they felt like if you can put somebody else there who has about the same defensive value but better offense, why not go with that? So I don't know. We'll see in a few weeks who takes over full-time duties, but oh well.
Yeah, I'll start with the Yolmer Sanchez part of it too. It's just I don't understand the vitriol that the Orioles were getting for letting him go. Yeah, they signed him with him being the starting second baseman in mind, but to me, this is a guy who only played a handful of games at the major league level last year. He wasn't hitting a lick in spring training, and I saw him make an error in the 2 or 3 games that I actually got to see on TV. So maybe it just wasn't working out for them, and they took a flyer on Plutko, who, he's had some solid outings, and maybe they've been scouting him this spring and saw something they liked, and They pounced when they realized Cleveland was not going to have room for him. He can start out as a long man in the bullpen, maybe get a few spot starts and just take it from there. Like Nick said, we're going to need innings, and he can provide some. So why not? I think we're going to go through a lot of names this year. So
the innings really are going to be key, and I think the fact that Plutko is a guy that can come out of the bullpen and give you multiple innings is one of the reasons why the Orioles went with him. As for Sanchez, I've been kind of trying to wrestle with that in my head since the move happened, because I think I pretty much figured, like most people who follow the Orioles, that Sanchez would be the starting second baseman on opening day and would probably have the job for a good chunk of the season before we started looking at a Jahmai Jones or a Rylan Bannon or Ramon Urias maybe hitting well in limited time to take it over. But like Nick said, I just have to think that maybe the Orioles didn't entirely like what they saw defensively, because what he is as a hitter. And he didn't have a good spring training, but you also didn't bring him in because of his bat. So there had to be a little bit with the defense that gave them pause. And I think it's apparent that the offensive upside is higher with Pat Valleca and Ramon Urias than it is with Yolmer Sanchez. Is the glove going to be as good? In Valleca's case, definitely not. In Urias's case, maybe not. But then this also does give them a little bit more flexibility probably in terms of how they handle Rio Ruiz. If they want to give Ruiz more of a shot while keeping Maikel Franco in the lineup, this is your opportunity. Slide Ruiz over to second base, see what the move does for him. If that's something they want to experiment with, I'm fine with that. Personally, if I had to pick who I think should get the most at bats for now, I would go with Urias, just because I think we've seen the least with him, and I want to see what he can do at the plate a little bit more. But if they want to move around those three guys for the time being, that's fine. And I think that something that we'll talk about later on in this show, and something we could see later this summer, is do Jahmai Jones or Rylan Bannon take over the position maybe around the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think there's definitely options there. And I mentioned Richie Martin as well. I think maybe I'm one of the few people who still thinks that he could be a decent backup option, but he's still there. He's healthy. He looks healthy, it looks like. Got in a few at-bats there at the end of spring, so we'll see what he does. It'll be interesting to see. Never mind. I was going to say it'll be interesting to see what the Norfolk lineup is like, but we're still a month away from minor league baseball. So much for that. Never mind.
Mason McCoy's eyebrow raised just a little bit when they got rid of Yolmer Sanchez.
Poor Mason. I feel so bad for that guy. He's never going to get a shot.
I know, it's a shame. It is.
Yeah, middle infield depth at the top of the system has gotten so crowded. I mean, maybe the quality is not there for a lot of people, but the quantity certainly is. And when you get rid of the guy who was expected to be your starting second baseman less than a week before opening day, and you have all of these players still lingering as options, it says something about your depth. And that's sort of where McCoy's getting squeezed out, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we mentioned earlier, this is a predictions episode. And as you know, if you've been listening on The Verge since we started last year, we love predictions episodes. And one of the things we're really looking forward to in 2021 is that we will probably do several predictions episodes. In fact, this is our second one this year. We did one before spring training, and our rule for ourselves is that if we're going to do a new prediction show, we have to recap our last prediction show to see what we got right and more likely the large number of stuff that we got wrong. Bob went back and listened to our show in February where we made predictions for spring training. We know the results of pretty much all of those predictions now. I'm going to let him read off how our predictions went.
Yeah, first of all, it was an entertaining show. People should subscribe and listen to this podcast. Not too bad. But the predictions, I started things off and said that the DH will be instituted in the NL and playoffs will be expanded at the last second. And I'm not giving up hope on that just yet. We still have less than 24 hours for that, but it could happen. Stranger things have happened.
I believe they're talking about it tonight. It could happen tonight.
Wow.
I'm seeing some rumblings, so we'll see. I don't know.
And then the first real predictions was how many pitchers will be in the opening day rotation and who will they be and what order. We all predicted 6-man rotations, so got to take ownership and say we were wrong in that regard. But Nick kicked things off and he said, we all picked John Means as number 1. Nick had Kramer 2, King Felix 3, Keegan Aiken 4, Jorge Lopez 5, and Matt Harvey 6. I had Means, Kramer, King Felix, Aiken, Harvey, and then Bruce Zimmerman. I actually called that, which is surprising. And Zach had Means, King Felix, Dean Kramer, Keegan Aiken, Jorge Lopez, and Wade LeBlanc. We were all wrong on King Felix, and we guess we should get to that point of news as well, right, Zach?
Yeah, King Felix no longer with the organization after an elbow injury kind of stalled his progress at the end of camp. For most of spring training, it looked like he was going to be in the Orioles rotation somewhere. That 85-mile-an-hour fastball, it looked like he might still be somewhat effective with it. But ended up having an elbow issue, didn't make the roster. I guess from those predictions, the one that stands out to me the most is Aiken not making the roster. He really struggled in camp, and Bob actually wrote about this week on the site for his 3 up, 3 down column, the first one of the year. And I think the thing that you really hit the nail on the head with, as far as Aiken was concerned, was the walks.
Yeah, he just could not find his command at all this entire. Even when he wasn't walking people, he was having deep counts, 3-2 count, 2-2 count. He just was having 25, 30 pitch innings quite frequently. So I think, just having that alternate site the first month of the season, give him a chance to just find his legs, find his arm, just find that command. I mean, he's never had great command, but it's been better than this, and hopefully he can iron that out and get back to the major leagues before too long.
Yeah, the walks have been an issue since he was at Western Michigan, and that's not going to change with Keegan Aiken. So, but he definitely, that wasn't the Keegan Aiken that you saw him struggle sometimes in Norfolk in 2019, where he has bad outing, but he might put together a good inning in that outing, or he's going to come out the next day or the next 5 days later and put up a good outing. He looked just different. Something was off there. So I think it maybe says more that the Orioles are going to go ahead and put him in the alternate site and let him work that out instead of just saying stick in the rotation, figure it out versus Boston and New York. So I think maybe that means they still view him as a future rotation piece. But we'll have to see about that.
Before we get to the next prediction recap, I do think we should give Bruce Zimmerman a shout out. He had a great camp, and I know we talked about this with Alex Fast a couple weeks ago, but Bruce Zimmerman really earned that roster spot with the way he pitched.
Yeah, he kind of laid an egg at the last, start of the spring training. But, I mean, I think those guys were ready to head on north, and he was probably kind of had a letdown just from getting the news that he'd be the third starter. So I'm not going to take too much from it. But, yeah, he did great in camp and really earned his spot.
I've got some high praise for him later on the show. Don't worry.
All right. So our next one is pleasant surprise and biggest disappointment of the spring. Zach said the biggest surprise would be Jahmai Jones, and the biggest disappointment would be Chris Davis. Nick said the biggest surprise would be Austin Hayes. Ding, ding, ding. And biggest disappointment would be DJ Stewart. Correct when it at least comes to the injury front. And I said that Yusniel Diaz would be the biggest surprise and Cedric Mullins would be the biggest disappointment. And I was dead wrong about that.
Hayes was nice. It was nice to see Hayes break out in spring. And it's good that Cedric Mullins wasn't a disappointment. And now Cedric Mullins is right there in the middle of all the lineup discussions. So I'm excited for him.
Never been happier to be wrong. Let's see. Then starting outfield we predicted. And we all started with the same Mountcastle, Hayes, Santander. That's probably going to be right more or less for opening day. And then we also predicted the end of the season. And we were a little bit different. You guys said Diaz will be in left, Hayes in center, and Santander in right. I said Mountcastle in left, Hayes in center, and Yusniel Diaz in right field.
We'll see. Yeah, they didn't work Mountcastle at first base at all later in the spring training, so I think that is going to be the outfielder. Maybe Santander DH's opening day. I guess with that oblique, I don't know, but I think that outfield's pretty set.
All right. Next, we had how many bench spots will there be, and who will fill them? Zach had. We all had Francisco. That was pretty obvious. So we all had. I did not have Mullins. Oh yeah, I thought it would be a disappointment. So I guess I thought he would start in the alternate site. You guys had Mullins and Pat Valleca. So pretty spot on. I said Chris Davis and Jahmai Jones. So I couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah, I think the only reason I didn't have Chris Davis was because I thought he might be the DH on opening day.
Yeah.
I think it was the only reason I didn't have Davis on there.
Yeah, no one saw the 2 at-bats and 60-day IL stint coming, I guess. Now, the next question will also lead to a bit of news, but we said, will the Rule 5 picks make the roster? And you guys said, nope, neither of them will. I said, only Tyler Wells. Well, turns out they both made it.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Zach wrote the piece on BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com, so.
Yeah, I wrote a piece on BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com yesterday talking about this. Wells had an excellent spring. I think with 12 strikeouts in 9 innings, it tells you a lot about how effective he was. Struck out John Carlos Stanton on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball last weekend, so the velocity was there, the strikeouts were there. So Roller was a little bit more of a surprise because at first glance his numbers weren't that impressive, but he had one brutal outing against Toronto early in March, and then after that was pretty effective. So I think the Orioles, in watching those two guys, saw two pitchers who got better as camp progressed and who handled an increasing workload as we saw spring training wind down and head into the regular season. Whether they're both going to stick on the major league roster all year, I don't know, but I think they've set themselves up nicely to be part of the solution in the bullpen as guys that can get multiple innings each outing.
Yeah, I was still shocked by Sorolla just because you look on Baseball Reference and his opponent quality was high A, was the level of competition he faced in spring training, and the strikeouts weren't there. He only had like 2 or 3 strikeouts, and that to me is a red flag. I'm worried about that, but I mean, I guess for right now, to put him on, see what he does in these first week or so of the season with Sharon Armstrong on paternity leave, so he's not on the roster right now. There's space on the roster right now for him to give him a few outings and see what happens, but that was definitely shocking, I think.
Yeah, who was the guy that also was a Rule 5 pick when Richie Martin got taken? It was the guy from the Dodgers.
Oh, Drew Jackson, I believe.
Drew Jackson. I think Max Roller is going to be the Drew Jackson of 2021, and Tyler Wells will be the Richie Martin. But especially that last outing, I thought Tyler Wells was just magical on the mound. I mean, he looked great. All right, so I guess we'll go on to the next one. Will Zach Pop and or Gray Fenter come back to the Orioles? Me and Zach both said only Gray Fenter will come back. Well, that part's already out of the way. And Nick said they'll both come back, and I'm really hoping that's true at some point.
It's a long season.
True. Longer than last year. Let's see. Any notable transactions before opening day? And there certainly turned out to be between Adam Plutko, Michael Franco, and that's pretty much it. Nick said maybe a minor league signing for a pitcher. Zach said maybe a minor league signing for a pitcher, but basically no. And I said a minor pitching signing if one or both of the Rule 5 guys are returned to their teams respectfully. We didn't see the stuff coming.
There's still a few hours before we take on Boston, and Odor will be out there shortly. So TBD.
Will Adley Rutschman start in AAA? We could probably still predict that question, but we all said no. I think we all assumed he'll start at AA and then work his way up from there. Not too much to say. Will we get a Dustin Knight backflip, a Mickey Janis knuckleball, or a Ryan Ripken at bat in 2021? I said no to Dustin Knight, yes to Mickey Janis, and no to Ryan Ripken. Zach said the same exact thing, and Nick, for whatever reason, never answered the question. We might have just got sidetracked there.
Mickey Janis got a shout out on Effectively Wild podcast today. They finished up their season preview series. They had Joe Trezza on, and at the very end, Mickey Janis got a shout out. I think that probably explains more about the state of the Orioles, that he is a talking point on that podcast. But hey, I mean, I want to see Mickey Janis out there. Let's give us something to watch.
Yeah, I listened to that today too. That was interesting. A lot of dunking on the Orioles as usual, but still a good interview with Joe Trezza. And yeah, I think the Orioles Twitter account has no one to blame but themselves for the Mickey Janis attention. Will the Orioles still be the media's punching bag? I think we know the answer to that. It's yes. What position would we be surprised by the starter on opening day? Me and Zach said third base, and Nick said Cesar Valdez in the starting rotation. Could still happen. But I think we were pretty spot on with Ruiz there, Zach.
Yeah, and I think really there's two correct answers to this question now. Third base and second base have the potential to be surprises. So, but third base, I think, Bob, you and I got that right. And who knows? Maybe Valdez is in the rotation. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly pitched pretty good in the spring. And the last question will the Orioles have a set closer by the end of camp? I said there will be a committee led by Tanner Scott. Nick said a committee with Tanner Scott in most high leverage spots, and Zach said a split between Scott and Valdez until Valdez is traded. Interesting.
I think that's what they're going to do. I don't think we're going to have a set closer. Some other teams, I think, are leaning towards that situation. I think the word closer, I think, is a term most people should probably just go ahead and stop avoiding. But that's a whole other podcast episode, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe Fantasy League should soon switch to save/hold, combine those.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Bob, you're the commissioner of our Fantasy League. Can't you make that happen?
Propose it for next year, and we'll see.
All right, so those were our last predictions, and now we will get into our predictions for the 2021 season. And I'm going to start with a question that we also predicted last year, which is, will any Orioles, note the emphasis on the plural, will any Orioles finish in the top 3 of Rookie of the Year voting? And if so, who will they be? I'm going to start with Bob on this one.
I think, for sure we'll have at least one. I mean, we have a decent amount of options here between Mountcastle, Kramer, even Aiken, despite starting on the alternate site, and Bruce Zimmerman, who made it into the rotation. I said that Mountcastle's going to win the award this year. I think Wander Franco is going to make a late push, but I think he'll get started a little bit late, and Mountcastle's numbers will be a little bit too much to overturn. And then I think Dean Kramer will finish third. So I think we'll have 2 Orioles in the top 3.
That would be awesome. I'm taking my orange-colored glasses off when I say this, and when I also say that Ryan Mountcastle is my winner for Rookie of the Year, I think. If Jared Kelenic comes up, as Bob holds up the Mountcastle jersey, if Jared Kelenic comes up soon, I think he's going to be a favorite. He's really exciting to watch. I'm pretty sure that's why I followed the Seattle Mariners player development Twitter account, which every other MLB team should take note of and copy. I think a lot of other people might have Randy Arozarena from Tampa Bay as their early favorite, but I'm hesitant to buy high on him. I love Nick Madrigal, but he didn't have the pop. He didn't have the power. I think that is going to attract him to a lot of votes. So, I'm going with Ryan Mountcastle.
I'm going to go Mountcastle finishes in the top 3 but does not win. I think Kelenic or Wander Franco end up winning the award. I would say that Franco, of those two, is the odds-on favorite, but we also don't know when he's going to actually get to the major leagues. So I think Kelenic, I'll go with Kelenic as the winner, and then Mountcastle finishes somewhere in the top 3.
Still wouldn't be a bad result.
I feel like even if Franco only comes up later in the year, he doesn't have to do much to win the actual award because there's so much hype surrounding him.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. So which players from our top 30 prospect lists will graduate by the All-Star break? We'll go Zach first.
I'm going to go with Bruce Zimmerman, Ryan Mountcastle, Dean Kramer, and Keegan Aiken. I think Aiken ends up coming back up far enough ahead of the All-Star break to graduate because he actually doesn't have all that far to go. So I'm going to go with those 4 guys.
I think you're right. I think that's spot on. I would agree with that completely. But I would like to expand this question. So, Nick, when you answer yourself, maybe answer both parts. But, Mountcastle, Kramer, Aiken, Zimmerman, I think will be no longer eligible by the All-Star break. But how about towards the end of the season? How many will graduate by then? I said 3 more to equal 7. I think Yusniel Diaz, Rylan Bannon, and Zach Lothar will be the other 3.
I had those same exact 4 to start out with by the All-Star break. Possibly even Jahmai Jones. Depends on how quickly the Orioles want to bring him up. And it's all about the bat. And I think we'll talk about that more a little bit later on too. But I think definitely by the end of the year, I had also had Diaz. I put Jahmai Jones by the end of the year, and then I said Zach Lothar by the end of the year. Bannon probably, but with Franco in the mix, if Ruiz sticks around and Urias sticks around and Valleca is still around, I don't know. With Rylan Bannon, he didn't really stand out too much in spring, so I'm a little bit more hesitant. I'm still high on him, but at least for right now, probably holding him back a little bit. But, I see as many as 7, possibly more are out of our top 30. And if Jahmai Jones graduates before the All-Star break, we won't have a list with Jahmai Jones on it because he's technically not on our list because he came afterwards. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lothar, Diaz. Jahmai Jones, as Nick said, is technically not on the list, but I do think he will graduate this year. And I'm going to throw a bold one in here. I'm going to say Tyler Nevin graduates. I think somewhere in there's going to be an opening for first, kind of that corner type utility player, which Nevin is. And I think that there's going to be an opportunity for him to come up and get at bats faster than people think. And I think the fact that he's always been a guy that's had a pretty disciplined plate approach will get him to the major leagues a little bit faster. So Tyler Nevin's kind of the bold one I'm going to go with there. But then otherwise, I would say Jones, Lothar, Diaz, maybe Bannon. I would love to see Michael Baumann before the year is over, and I think that's a possibility, but it won't be enough innings to graduate.
Yeah, that was my thought line with him too. Same with Wells and Kevin Smith and all those other guys. I just don't think there'll be enough innings to go around to at least, get rid of them all from prospect eligibility. So the next question is, will the Orioles be sellers at the trade deadline? I think that's an easy one, but we're also going to say, if so, who will be traded and maybe for what? Let's go with Zach first.
All right, so as far as who's going to get traded, I think it will be Paul Fry and what will basically be a Miguel Castro type move where he's pitching about as well as he can and you try to get the most for him. Pedro Severino will be traded, which will not lead to an Adley Rutschman promotion. I'm just going to end that speculation right now. It will lead to Brett Cumberland being in the major leagues for the rest of the year. So I'm going to go Paul Fry. I had a couple of other names jotted down here, but Paul Fry, Pedro Severino, Freddie Galvez will get traded. And I think that one of the third basemen, either Ruiz or Franco, more likely Franco, gets dealt, and I think Cesar Valdez gets dealt because I said that back in spring training, so I'm going to stick with it.
And I meant to go into more specifics. Do you think Santander, Mancini, or Scott will be traded?
No.
Okay. Nick?
Interesting. They're going to be sellers, except this year there's going to be a lot of young talent to take these guys' spots, so that will be fun to watch at least. I think Severino definitely, as long as he continues to hit well. I mean, he's an above league average hitter at the catching position, which is a huge surprise considering what he did when he was with the Nationals. So if he continues to hit well, say what you will about his defense, like you're right about it. Whatever you say, it's bad. But teams might be looking for that offensive catcher later in the year. So I think he's definitely going to get shopped. I like the Paul Fry. I had Shawn Armstrong down. I think teams are always looking to add more relievers, and of course, they want that high leverage reliever, but there are also a lot of these tinier deals, the Shawn Armstrong type deals where he's making less than $1 million, and he's pitched really well with the Orioles since he joined the organization. So I think some team he won't be their primary bullpen option that they look to trade for, but they'll definitely try to add him, and he can go multiple innings if you need him to. My bold prediction earlier was Tanner Scott gets dealt. I think that was when we had Connor Newcomb on with us. That I mentioned that. I think if the right package comes along, you got to do it. 10 out of 10 times, I'm taking that deal. These relievers can blow up at any second. But you definitely sell very, very high on Tanner Scott for sure. So the right package has to come along. Maybe Pat Valaika. I think a lot of these Pat Valaika, Armstrong type deals can get made where the Orioles acquire more bonus pool money. We're not the ones trading away bonus pool money. We're the ones accumulating it now. So we can stockpile that new facility with high-end talent. And I think, honestly, maybe DJ Stewart, if he's healthy and plays well, I'd trade him. As to who, I think pay attention to the NL East and NL Central teams. Those are the teams that I marked down as possible deal makers with the Orioles. I think a lot of teams in those two divisions are going to be contenders late in the year, and they're going to be looking to add a lot of pieces and probably pick some cheap options from the Orioles.
And I'll go ahead and just throw this in. I think the team that acquires Severino will be one that we're not expecting right now because I think catcher often is a position of need after someone gets hurt. And I'm not going to make a prediction about who's going to get hurt on another team. That's just wrong. But I'm just going to say that I think that the team that acquires Severino would not be one that we would have expected coming out of spring training. It will be prompted by a sudden need.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, I had two specifics and then a couple just where I'm not going to get too granular here, but I think Anthony Santander will be traded. I think in May or June, he'll be traded to the White Sox once they realize that Andrew Vaughn is not the answer in left field. And we will get Jared Kelly plus 2 others in return for him. Would that be acceptable for you guys?
I guess it depends on how well Santander plays at the beginning of the year. I think if he comes out hot, then sure. I mean, I think you can get a pretty big return for him.
Yeah, I would say the same. One of the reasons I didn't think he was going to get moved is because right now he is battling a little bit of an injury, and we've yet to see him really put it together over the course of a full season. So somehow I think it might end up turning into a Michael Givens situation where the Orioles hold on to him longer than we expect, but then you realize in the end they actually maximize the return.
All right. Well, I also think, my heart says no, but my head is saying Mancini will be traded. Nick, you're going to like this, to the Los Angeles Angels for Reed Detmers plus an international prospect.
Come on, Reed.
I think Tanner Scott, it'll be enticing. The offers will be enticing to move him, but no, I ultimately think they'll keep him at least for another year. And I think Matt Harvey will be traded at one point. Michael Franco will be traded, and maybe 1 or 2 of the Paul Fry, Cesar Valdez, Sean Armstrong group.
What about, before we move on to the next question, I made a note about this, but I didn't know if I wanted to bring it up or not. What about John Means? That's a name that I think a lot of people don't talk about possibly being traded. But if he's pitching really well and teams come calling, do the Orioles move him?
I wrote down a hot take myself that involved John Means. I said he will be the first extension by Mike Elias. Okay. I think they could extend him for like a 6-year deal for, I don't know the specifics, but just say like, I don't know, a reasonable amount of money for the Orioles, but also a reasonable deal for Means. Win-win. I think he proves himself this year that he is at least a mid-rotation starter on a contending team. So that's my answer.
I like that.
I'm going to say that Means, I don't know if he gets extended, but I don't see him getting traded. And the only reason I say that is if the Orioles think that within the next 2 years they could, build something resembling a contender, they probably should hold on to Means, because by that point he'll be the veteran. He really kind of is a veteran now, but he'll really be the veteran at that point. And he could really be the anchor of the middle of the rotation, which I do think has value. He's not an ace by any means, but if he's your number 3 on a contending team 3 years from now, that's a good outcome. And I think that's kind of what the Orioles should be striving towards, and I'm going to guess that's what they are going toward.
If he is traded, to me, I'm thinking the pathway to contention just got a little bit wider. They think it's going to take a little bit longer, so I'm hoping that's not the case.
Yeah, same. I just want to throw that name out there and see what happens. Hopefully not, though.
So for the next prediction, who will reach the majors first this year? Jahmai Jones or Rylan Bannon? And I'll start with Nick.
I think it's Jones for sure. I mean, he was used a lot this spring. Sanchez is gone now. He's already made his MLB debut. So, like I mentioned before, Bannon didn't really stand out too much in spring. So I think Jones is a better defender, also at second base. A lot of great plays we saw this spring. So it's all about the bat. Does the bat come around? And if it does, then I think he could be in the big leagues pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it'll be Jones. I think Bannon is being groomed more for third base than second base, and Jones has a little more versatility where he can play infield and outfield. Plus, he already has the major league time, like Nick had mentioned. So, yeah, I think it'll be Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jones as well because of the versatility. I think the fact that he can play the outfield is going to help him because, let's face it, with the outfield this year, even though it's probably the area of the team that is the most set, we know Austin Hayes' injury history. We know that Ryan Mountcastle is far from a perfect left fielder. Cedric Mullins struggles against left-handers, and then even Anthony Santander's injuries a little bit. I do think there is going to be a need, if nothing else, to have a quality bench option in the outfield. And the fact that Jones gives you that flexibility where he can play second base, play left field, probably play a little bit of center as well, gets him to the majors first. But I think they're both there at some point.
Yeah. All right, this is an easy one. Which prospect eligible players are going to finish with the most at-bats and the most innings pitched? We'll go Bob.
Obviously, it's Ryan Mountcastle for at-bats. And even though I think Kramer's going to be third place in Rookie of the Year voting, I think he's going to have less innings pitched than Bruce Zimmerman, the third starter. So
I'm going to go with Mountcastle and Kramer, and I know that that's kind of the obvious pick here, but I think that Mountcastle is going to be in the lineup every day, and I think that pretty much clears the path for him to get the most at bats. Zimmerman might come close to Kramer, but I think the fact that Kramer had a little bit more major league time last year means that he might be stretched out a little bit more aggressively. So I'm going to stick with Kramer as the guy who throws the most innings of the prospect eligible pitchers.
Yeah, I think Ryan Mountcastle's the given there. I think he's the only hitter on the active roster with prospect status. So, and I said Kramer for innings pitched. I must have completely blanked about Bruce Zimmerman when thinking about this question, because now that would have been my answer, I think. But I said between Kramer and Aiken, I don't think Aiken stays down very long, but when he does come back up, thinking about like length in games, I think Dean Kramer is more suited to work out of jams and work deeper into outings. So that's why I kind of gave Kramer the nod there in innings pitched.
All right. Well, the next question, we're going on the offense. We did this last year, and I picked Ruiz and regretted it a couple weeks into the season. It was looking good in the beginning. Who will lead the team in home runs, and how many will they have? Let's go with Nick.
Chris Davis. No, I'm kidding. I'm stuck between Mountcastle and Mancini. Mancini is healthy. He's shown us that, but he did just sit out for a full year. The biggest battle of his life. He just overcame and won. But I'm anxious to see how his body holds up once we get into like later in the summer. And with Mountcastle, the book's out on him a little bit. MLB pitchers have some film on him, so they can adjust. How well is he going to adjust to them? I think the ball is not going to be dead. I don't know what the update is there. So I guess we're still going to see a lot of home runs, but I got a low number. I'm going to say Ryan Mountcastle with 29.
I'm going to go Mountcastle, but I'm going to go with 32. I think he crosses the 30 homer threshold. I don't think Mancini and Santander will be very far behind, and in fact, I would not be surprised if all three end up at 30 homers. But I think they're going to cut close to Mountcastle, but I think he gets over 30.
All right, I did a top 5, so I'll just count them up. I put 5th place Michael Franco with 23 home runs, Anthony Santander, number 4, with 27. Austin Hayes with 29 in 3rd place. Trey Mancini with 31. And Ryan Mountcastle, once again, 33 home runs.
It's a lot of home runs in Camden Yards.
Always.
It will happen.
So for the next prediction here, and it's going to be, is this a 3 true outcomes team? I'm wondering that, but that might be a discussion for another. So who will be the most surprising player to play in a game? I'm going to start with Bob here.
You kind of mentioned him earlier in the show. I think it's going to be Brett Cumberland. I think, like you said, if one of Cisco or Severino either has to go on an IL stint or gets traded, I think Nick Schufo is an option to come up at one point, and I think Brett Cumberland is also an option. And I just think not many people have that name on their bingo card as to who they're going to expect to see in 2021.
I've got a deeper name, and I get to use his name on the podcast. This is the reason why I'm excited to do this podcast once minor league baseball finally starts as well. But I'm going to drop the name Tyler Irwin, 26-year-old lefty out of New Mexico State. I brought the numbers. So for a lot of you who don't follow minor league relievers as much as I do, he steadily moved up through the organization since he was a 23rd round draft pick back in 2017. But in 2018, he appeared in 50 games at Frederick, and he had a 2.36 FIP and a 30% strikeout rate. In 2019, he went up to Bowie, was in 36 games, had a 2.63 FIP and a 20% strikeout rate. So strikeouts dropped, but he's a ground ball pitcher, about 50% for his career. Good numbers. He's got 180 career minor league innings with the Orioles. He's a left-handed reliever. he's only given up 3 home runs. Only one of those home runs was in 6-8 innings at Frederick, which, as we know, when the Orioles had an affiliate there many moons ago, it was a pretty home run friendly park. So I think that's really impressive. He's also just fun to watch. He has a bit of funky, weird delivery that makes him stand out. So I think he's going to eventually get a call up this year. And I say he's going to be my most surprising player to appear in an Orioles uniform this year.
Not Zach Muckenhern.
I think he will too, but I am a much bigger Tyler Irwin fan for sure.
That's fair.
Well, Bob, you actually just said my pick, Zach Muckenhorn. I think a
bad.
lefty that can get those types of strikeouts out of the bullpen is someone the Orioles are going to go to, especially because, as we've already touched on, we think the bullpen is going to be an area that the team does trade from. So even if he's not up by the All-Star break, I still think Muckenhorn gets a run of at least a month, maybe 2 at the end of the year. And I'm not going to full-on commit to it, but I also would not be shocked if somehow Kevin Smith worked his way onto the roster in September for an outing or 2. But I'm going to go with Muckenhorn as my prediction here.
Nice.
All righty. So talking about prospect pitching, what is going to be the biggest Orioles prospect storyline of this season? We can go Bob first.
I think it's going to be Yusniel Diaz. I think he's going to earn his way up. He's going to put in some good work at the alternate site. He's going to start off May monster month at AAA Norfolk, earn his way up. I think by the end of June, everyone's going to be fine with the idea of trading Anthony Santander, and Eric Longenhagen is going to be begging for our forgiveness. Alex Fast is going to add him to his fantasy team. So this jersey purchase will pay off.
So for prospect storyline, can we say prospect storyline other than speculation about whether or not Adley Russman's going to come up to the major leagues this year? Because I'm sure that is going to be a storyline. But I think the storyline will be the effectiveness of the rotations at Norfolk and Bowie. I think Norfolk is going to have a pretty promising staff. If Alexander Wells is healthy, I expect him to pitch well there. Zach Lothar, I think, is going to have a really big year. Michael Ballman, again, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be good to go. And then if you have Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall at Bowie at some point this year, which is the expectation, that you're going to have them both in the rotation, if not for all of the 2021 season, then for at least part of it. Bowie and Norfolk are going to have good rotations. So I think it's going to be the effectiveness of the starters at the higher levels of the minors.
Good answer.
Yeah, of course it's Adley, but yeah, we are not that kind of podcast. We dig deep, the real stories here. I'm going pitching too. It's the biggest storyline. I think shout out to Chris Stoner at BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. He called him the group of 7 on the board the other day. There's real hype surrounding Grayson Rodriguez, and Jim Callis has called him underrated, the most underrated pitching prospect, and he's ranked 27th on their list. So I think that speaks volumes about what the industry thinks about Grayson Rodriguez. You also have DL Hall sitting right there, but the range of outcomes when it comes to DL Hall are much more wide. So we'll have to see what goes on this year. It's a big year for him. But this group of 7, the Keegan Aiken, Dean Kramer, Michael Baumann, Alexander Wells, Kevin Smith, Zach Lothar, and Bruce Zimmerman, I think I want to see at least one of those guys step up and say, this rotation spot is mine, and I'm not giving it up. And I want to see at least one more of those guys step up and say, I'm a big leaguer. Like, I can hold my own, whether it's in the rotation or bullpen. Maybe we can figure that out next year. But for right now, I'm a major league pitcher. Just because I think same mean sticks around. Hopefully you combine that with a Grayson Rodriguez, and then you combine that with one of those group of 7 guys. You've got 3 guys right there. You bring in a frontline free agent in 2 years, another year. So that's your 4 out of 5, and your starting rotation is set. And I think that's a really, really good rotation. And now you need one more starter out of this massive pool of pitchers that the Orioles have now. Plus, Jack Leiter when he falls to 5, because we start spreading the Jack Leiter isn't that good rumors if we can get that going immediately, because he's unhittable, literally. But yeah, I think it's that group of 7 guys. I want to say it's the first big wave of pitching prospects, and especially for Orioles fans when it comes to pitching prospects, I want to see someone really step up and take control this year.
Yeah, so the next time Jack Leiter gives up a hit, so maybe late April, we can start saying he's not that good.
Just keep spreading that highlight around.
Yeah. Do we think Chris Davis is going to survive the season on the Orioles roster, on their payroll? Zach?
On their payroll, yes, because I think he's on the payroll to like 2075 or something like that. Yeah, I don't remember how long that contract is deferred out.
Let me say
it's deferred out there pretty far. I'm going to say that no, he does not.
On the roster.
He's not going to survive the season on the roster. Yeah, because he either will not be on the roster because they've moved on, or he will not be on the roster because he's on the 60-day injured list. And I think I also got to stay a little bit consistent here with my prediction earlier about Tyler Nevin. If you're giving it back to Chris Davis, there's really not a path forward for Tyler Nevin. But I think that Davis not being around is one of the things that's going to open the door for Nevin to get some playing time this summer.
Yeah, I'm going to say no as well. Look, we are reaching the, fingers crossed, knock on wood, end of this last year-long plus pandemic. Opening day is just hours away from when we're recording this, so I'm feeling great, and I don't want to worry about Chris Davis anymore. So no.
You and me both. But I think he will survive the season, but I don't think he will ever come off the 60-day IL, and then he will be finally, mercifully released in the offseason.
So on that note, does Rio Ruiz survive the season? I'll start with Nick on this one.
Same answer. No. No. Not with Jahmai Jones or Rylan Bannon there. Even if Franco's the guy you're looking to trade down the road, I don't think Rio Ruiz sticks around. I had high hopes for him last year for sure, and then he just kind of really fell off. And it really wasn't even the bat that made me back off Rio Ruiz. It was the glove. Just a lot of basic miscues, I think. And I hate saying that because I can't make those plays. I can't make the most routine play on a Major League Baseball field, but Rio Ruiz should be able to make those plays. A lot of those plays he did not make last year at third base. So I'm going to say no.
I agree. I love the hair last year. I love that walk-off home run he hit against Houston that one time. But unfortunately, I don't even think he makes it to June. I don't even think he makes 2 full months on the Orioles. So, no.
Make that a sweep here. I'm going to say no as well. Even though I think that, the opening at second base might give him some new hope, I just still think that between his streakiness at the plate, some of the questions about his defense and the improving depth at the top of the system, I just don't see how he makes it on the roster the full year. So I'm going to say no.
Nice. So let's pick the mood up and say, who is the 2021 Orioles MVO, most valuable Oriole? We'll go Bob.
Well, Austin Hayes, baby.
Yes.
He's going to pick up the slack from keep it going from spring training all the way into the season. He's going to stay healthy. He might miss a couple days. They're going to give him days off this year, but he plays 150 games. And he, like I said, he has 29 home runs. He plays great defense in center and right and all over the outfield. And I think he's going to hit for average, for power. He's kind of an underrated 5-tool guy. So, yeah, I think Austin Hayes is going to break out in a big way this year. When we thought last year might be the year, it's going to come a year later.
I absolutely love that pick, and I'm tempted to steal it, but I'm going to stick with my original prediction and go with Trey Mancini. I said earlier that I think that Mountcastle will hit more home runs, but I think Mancini is going to have a more complete year at the plate than Mountcastle will. In other words, get on base more, hit for a higher average. He's going to play good first base. I think he's really going to settle in now that he doesn't have to bounce back and forth between first base and the corner outfield spots. And above all else, I think we're just happy to see him healthy and back on the field. But I think he's going to come back in good form, and it's going to be a great story. So Trey Mancini for most valuable Oriole.
I also said Austin Hayes. I mean, I'm going to keep the hype train going. His defense, I think, is what makes him stand out just a little bit more. He showed us that this spring he can play all 3 outfield spots. He showed off the cannon in right field when he had like 2 putouts in that one game. He
3
was my
stolen
pick.
bases.
Yeah, I mean, as long as wear the oven mitt, please, because I don't want another one of those injuries. He was my pick as the spring standout, so I'm going to keep this going. I was also on another podcast a few weeks ago. Shout out to Christian Rao. He's at the High Heat podcast, and he just finished up 30 team previews in 30 days. And I jumped on to do the Orioles team preview, and he asked for a bold prediction from me, and I said Austin Hayes was the all-star rep this year for the Orioles. Although I think if Mancini is having even just a solid, decent year, of course, Major League Baseball, the Orioles, baseball fans across the country are going to vote him in, rightfully so. But I think Austin Hayes also has a shot to be the all-star rep this year. So I'm going to keep the hype train going and keep those good vibes, pushing them out towards Austin Hayes.
Hot take: the Orioles will have 3 All-Star Game representatives.
Ooh.
Let's go ahead and add that in as a prediction category right now. I mean, let's go ahead and add it in because I want to hear your 3.
I will say Trey Mancini. I will agree, Austin Hayes. I actually think Ryan Mountcastle is going to miss out, and I think we're going to have a pitcher. Between John Means and Tanner Scott. I'll say Tanner Scott. I think he's touching 100 miles an hour. I think he's just going to have a dominant first half and sneak on there.
Yeah, I think either Hayes or Mancini for sure, and then probably a reliever. If a reliever really steps up this year for the Orioles, I think he gets thrown in on the roster.
How awesome would Cesar Valdez at the All-Star game be?
I'm for it. Let's do it.
Let's start that hype train. The Jack Leiter is a very good hype train right now on this show. I want to watch Deadfish in the All-Star game. Yeah. I'm going to go with Scott, Mancini, and Mountcastle. I think that Hayes is going to be the big snub, but outfield is tough to make, and I think that the home run total is somehow going to give Mountcastle an edge. So I'm going to go Mountcastle, Mancini, Scott.
Why not all 4?
Yeah. Be great.
All right, so we did. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, is Mike Trout really that good? Like, is he a lock for All-Star game? Yeah.
His defense is finally slipping. We talked about MVP. Now let's talk about the next one. Orioles Cy Young. Anything interesting here? Let's go with Nick first.
Yeah, I mean, John Means, I think, is the obvious answer. So I'm going to avoid John Means for my answer, and I'm going to say the dark horse is Bruce Zimmerman. This is my high praise for him that I referenced at the beginning of the show. Maybe I'm buying too much into the spring hype, but he pitched really, really well, and he's a local kid, and I think he deserves this opportunity. Whether he sticks in the bullpen or stays in the rotation, I don't know right now, but we'll see how the season plays out. I think you can kind of throw away a set rotation for the Orioles this year out the window. It's going to be just piecemeal week by week, but other than maybe John Means for sure every 5 days. But yeah, I think however this shakes out, however Brandon Hyde uses his pitchers, I think Bruce Zimmerman is kind of a wild card that Brandon Hyde knows that he can use Zimmerman in multiple different scenarios. And he's always going to be there, hopefully, this year. And so I think that's going to put him – I'm not going to say he's going to win Orioles Cy Young unofficially award. I'm going to say it's probably going to be John Means, but the dark horse is going to be Bruce Zimmerman.
I'm going to go with Means for one of the reasons that Nick just mentioned, which is the fact that I think he's really the guy in the rotation right now. You can count on him to take the ball every 5 days and give you decent numbers. He's going to keep the Orioles in games. I'm not just saying that because, I think he's going to be just okay. I think he's going to have a good year. But I think it's also the fact that he's going to be out there every 5 days. He'll probably lead the team in most major pitching categories. He's probably going to be one of the few, if not the only starter that I think really gives you enough innings that you look at his season at the end of the year and think, okay, the bullpen was not taxed when that guy pitched. So I think that Means is going to be the probably the best pitcher overall in the rotation and certainly the most consistent. So I'm going to go with him here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a boring pick, but I think it's the right one. I'm pretty bullish on John Means' ability to be at least a 3 or 4 starter on the next Orioles contending team. I think he's going to split the difference between 2019 and 2020 and kind of find that nice mix between the improved velocity and finding that changeup again and trying to snag that command that he had in 2019. So I think John Means is going to just have a great year. I think he's really going to do it this year.
So who will win Orioles Rookie of the Year? And I'm not sure who wrote this question because there's a note in here that says to not pick Mountcastle to make it interesting. So other than Mountcastle, who will win Orioles Rookie of the Year? And Bob is raising his hand. So he wrote this question. I'll let him start with it.
Yeah, he barely is even rookie eligible. He crushed the ball last year. It just seems pretty obvious. And maybe if you think he wouldn't win it anyway, say that. But to me, I went with Dean Kramer. I know his numbers in the spring weren't that great, but I just like that new cutter. I think he was really just working on it all spring, and I think it looks pretty good. So I think once the season starts, hopefully he'll be able to put it together a little bit, stay in the rotation all year, and just put up some pretty good numbers.
I like that. So if we're not picking Mountcastle, I'm going to go with Jahmai Jones. Like I mentioned before, it's about the bat, though. If you look at his 2019 numbers in Double-A, he was he only hit 234 with a 308 on base percentage and a WRC plus of 86, so well below league average. Even in the stolen base department, I saw that he only stole 9 bases and was caught 11 times in 2019. The year before that, in 2018, in high A and Double A, he was 24 for 28 stolen bases. So I don't watch a lot of Angels minor league baseball, so I'm not sure what happened there. But every report that we read about Jahmai Jones once he came over in that trade was that the constant tinkering in his swing. So I think maybe if it seems like he found something that worked last year, if the Orioles can tap into that and the bat comes around, I think he has every opportunity to succeed with the Orioles. So I'm going to shy away from the pitchers here and go dark horse candidate as Jahmai Jones.
Yeah, Dean Kramer is the obvious pick, and I think I will go with him. I think that, kind of what I talked about earlier with Means sort of being the guy you look at long range, as sort of being the anchor in the middle of the rotation. I think Kramer's going to emerge as another pitcher in that mold as well this year. But if I wanted to take this a step further, I'd throw Yusniel Diaz in there. I think that when he does get to the majors this year, as long as he is healthy, people are just going to be surprised by the overall athleticism. And I think that he'll hold his own in one of the outfield corners, give you good on-base numbers. We'll see the power come along a little bit with the move to the majors and the move to Camden Yards, especially in the summer. So I think Diaz is going to be better than what people are expecting, but I'm going to go with Kramer.
I like that. So who's going to, we said the most surprising Oriole to appear in a game, but who's going to have the most surprising performance this year? We'll start with Zach this time.
I think I just kind of touched on it with Diaz a little bit. I think he will have a surprising year just because I think that we've sort of kind of taken him for granted a little bit, and it is a little bit of a challenge right now to look and see where he's going to fit on this roster. But I think that he'll come up somewhere maybe by July 1st, and I think he'll manage to find at bats, probably bouncing back and forth between the two outfield corners and DH. He'll put up better power numbers than what people are expecting. And the defense overall, there's some mixed reviews out there on it, but the arm is good. And you're going to get to see a really good arm from left field or right field when he's out there. So I'm going to say Diaz is most surprising.
All right, I went with Freddie Galvez, who I think is just a guy who he's kind of just flying under the radar. I think Orioles fans, not like they really had a chance to watch much spring training, but you don't really hear much about him from the reporting. He's just steady Eddie out there at shortstop. He's actually, I think he took a few walks, but I think a lot of Oriole fans are still kind of pissed that Jose Iglesias is gone. But I think once they see Freddie Galvez and how solid he is up the middle, they'll be pleasantly surprised. And I even wrote down that he would be sixth place with 21 home runs. So.
Yeah, and I think it'll be fun because him and Michael Franco are friends, and they've been friends for a very long time. I think they had Galvez on one of the spring broadcasts and mentioned they've known each other since they came to the States. So that'll be fun to watch Freddie Galvez. I'm excited to watch him. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna go with a name here that you can take my mic away and just tweet at me that I should just stop podcasting. I'm going to say Jorge Lopez for this. So, and I'm going to use spring training stats to justify this. So take this with a grain of salt. It's fine. It's spring training. Everybody's 0-0 right now, and I feel great. But I think looking at some of the numbers, though, Jorge Lopez did have, going back to Baseball Reference, an 8.2 opponent quality in spring training, which is AAA basically, but he faced the toughest competition. He faced tougher competition than John Means, Dean Kramer, Aiken, all those guys, and he pitched really well. So I think he struck out 17 guys across 19 innings at a 2.75 ERA. And against Tampa Bay and New York, he had 8 scoreless innings where he struck out 8 against 2 division rivals. And I know it's spring training; they're all spring training numbers, but something's going on around the league this year that spring training performances really did matter with a lot of these rookies making ball clubs. And I've seen that comment made a few other places over the last couple of days. Spring training really did seem to matter this year. And so I now fully expect Jorge Lopez to give up 11 runs in 2 innings in his first start. But for now, I have a semi-hype train for Jorge Lopez.
This is definitely the Cody Carroll of 2021.
Yep. That's bad.
No, I would love to see it. All right, so I think the counterpoint to most surprising would be most disappointing. Who is going to not be so good and disappoint? I don't know how many different ways you can say disappoint, but Zach.
Um, I don't think what we saw with the bat last year from Pat Valaika is going to carry over, and I know that that's a relative term when you're talking about a bench player, but I get the sense that Valaika is going to get squeezed out as the year goes on, just because of the number of players at the higher levels of the minors. I just don't think the offensive production we saw in the shortened season last year is going to carry itself over, and he doesn't have the glove at any of the positions he plays to hang in there. So I'm going to go with Valaika.
Yeah, I'm sticking with my preseason pick. I'm going to say DJ Stewart. I think he has to fight for at-bats. He's not going to be a regular in this lineup. There's really no path for him to be a regular in this lineup, barring, significant injuries, which hopefully there's none, obviously. But we've talked about it before. I think that he just needed to be in the lineup to have regular at-bats to prove himself, and he's not going to get that opportunity this year. So I think this may be happy trails for DJ Stewart.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that. But I'm going to go with Pedro Severino, actually, as biggest disappointment. I know he had a great first half of 2020, but, man, he really tailed off at the second half of that season in August, or was it September? And he didn't exactly light the world on fire in spring training. I don't know. And just the catchers in general, I think Cisco and Severino had a pretty good year last year, but I think something's going to happen where Severino is going to perform bad enough that we are not able to trade him. And I think we're going to be licking our chops for Adley Rutschman. So it's going to be good timing for 2022. And I guess I have the next category as well, and that's World Series picks. So talking Major League Baseball as a whole, we're taking over the warehouse territory now, talking about baseball in general. And let's go with Nick.
All right, so I'm going to go with Tampa Bay and Atlanta, with Atlanta winning. I'm not too excited, honestly, about many American League teams. Minnesota, I definitely am, but I went with Minnesota last year as my pick. And we know that if they get matched up with the Yankees in the first round of the playoffs, that they're not going to advance. So I'm hesitant to pick Minnesota, but I want to say Atlanta over Tampa Bay. But my heart really wants Minnesota versus San Diego. And I want 7 games, each game like 5-6 hours long. That's what I really want. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Twins are going to end their postseason struggles in a big way, and they will get to the World Series this year, but lose to your back-to-back World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers.
All right, well, I have the Dodgers winning the NL West, but I have the Padres coming out of the National League and beating the Yankees to win the World Series. Manny Machado gets his World Series ring, and that is a fun team to watch and a fun future. You love to see the Yankees lose, and you love to see a fun team like the Padres win. So from my lips to whoever you believe in's ears.
So now we'll predict the order of the AL East, starting with Bob.
Obviously, I think you got to go Yankees 1. I think the Tampa Bay Rays are being underrated. I mean, I know they traded Snell and a bunch of guys, but they just have a way of just making that factory of pitching, and they still have plenty of talent over there and one of the deepest farm systems you'll ever see. So I think they'll get a wild card. Second place. I think Toronto Blue Jays have improved, but I don't think they've improved quite enough just yet. So they'll be third. Red Sox 4th, but just barely over our O's, who will be 72 and 90 in 5th place, which is a big improvement for us from 2019. And I mean, last year doesn't really count. I think the Red Sox will only be a couple games ahead of us.
I'm going Tampa Bay 1, New York 2, then Boston, then Toronto, then Baltimore. I think Blue Jays are definitely the hype pick, but they just don't have any pitching behind Ryu. Kirby Yates went on. He's having Tommy John surgery, so he's out for the year. I saw George Springer and one of their pitchers, I think it was Robbie Ray or Ross Stripling. One of them is also starting the year in the IL. Boston's got some bounce back candidates in their lineup. I like JD Martinez as possible bounce back candidate. Hunter Renfroe could rake in the AL East. I watched him nearly hit the warehouse at Baltimore. That was the last time I was actually at Camden Yards when the Padres came to town. French Cordero is fun whenever he's healthy, but he's never been healthy, so we'll see what happens there. But I'm kind of a secret fan of Boston's rotation, but I think that the Orioles because we are an Orioles podcast, I do think that the Orioles can potentially leapfrog the Blue Jays, is my kind of semi-bold prediction here, if the pitching for Baltimore and my guy Jorge Lopez clicks. We'll see.
So almost extreme ends of the forecast here for the Blue Jays. I'm going to go the Yankees winning the division. The Blue Jays in second. The Rays make a late run in third, but fall short because they wait too long to promote Wander Franco. And then the Red Sox fourth and the Orioles fifth. Like Bob said, I don't think the gap between the Red Sox and the Orioles is going to be all that big. And then for Toronto, I've been high on him since I saw him play in person as a rookie in 2019. I think Bill Bissett's going to have a big year. And I think that he'll be an MVP consideration. And even as Nick said, Toronto's pitching. I don't think it's playoff caliber, but I think that lineup is going to hit, and Bissett's going to be the guy that really moves it along. So Toronto ends up getting a wild card spot and finishes second in the AL East.
We'll see, and it all starts tomorrow.
Oh my God, let's go!
So let's end this here with a last little lightning round. I pulled all these are from Fangraphs projections. This is where all these numbers come from. I got 5 hitting stats and 5 pitching stats, and we're just going to say over or under each of these marks. So start with Trey Mancini at 25 home runs. Over or under?
Over.
I say over as well. 31.
Yeah, I'm going over as well, just over. Anthony Santander is projected to lead the team with 29 home runs. Over under 29 for Santander.
Let's keep the same order throughout.
I'm going to say over. I think we lost Bob there.
Ooh, can you not hear me?
Oh, no, you're good now.
Okay. I'll say under, but barely.
Yeah, I'm going to say under. You got to show me you can play a full season first. Ryan Mountcastle, 26 walks. Over or under? Go Zach.
I'm going to go over here. I just don't know. Like, if we're talking about him as a Rookie of the Year candidate, I don't know how he could be in the mix for that if his walk total is lower than 26.
Yeah. I think it's a good number, actually, just looking at his minor league stats. But I think he'll be over somewhere around 30.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. I'm going to say 40 just because. Mark that. Austin Hayes, 121 games played.
You can't be MVP without going over, so we're going over.
Over.
Yeah, I'm praying that it is over as well. Fangraphs has not a single Oriole player being worth 2 wins above replacement or higher. Anthony Santander is at 1.9. He's the highest. So over under 1 position player being worth more than 2 F4 this year.
That's ridiculous. It's over. We're going to have at least 4.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah, definitely over, especially if, I don't get that. To the pitching side, John Means, a 4.90 ERA.
Under. More like 3.90.
Yeah, I'm with Bob on that one, under.
Yeah, I'm going under. I think the ERA might be a little inflated, but I think that FIP is going to look pretty nice for John Means. Dean Kremer, 0.5 F4. Over or under?
I'll go a little bit over.
Yeah, I'll go over too. I had to stop and think about that one for a minute, but I think he will go over.
Yeah, I think he'll be around 1 WAR player this year if everything goes right. I think Keegan Aiken at a 5.0 ERA.
Under.
I will say under, but it's going to be close, and I think it's because he might get some time in the bullpen, which will kind of get him there, get him across the finish line.
I'm going to say over. I see like 5.5. Hopefully not, though. Matt Harvey, 18 starts with the Orioles this year.
Under.
I'll say under 18 games started for the Orioles, but he'll be over 18 overall at the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm going under as well. I don't know how long that magic lasts. Last one, Tanner Scott and Cesar Valdez both have 6 saves. That's the highest mark among the Orioles. So over under 6 saves for those guys.
Say over for Scott, under for Valdez.
Over for Scott and over for Valdez, but Valdez won't finish much higher than that before he's traded.
I'm going over with both. And lots of strikeouts from both.
Well, we'll see how our predictions shape up here over the coming months. So I'll start with Bob. Any final thoughts on the predictions and what you're excited about for this season?
I'm just excited for baseball to start officially. It's going to be amazing to have the beginning of an entire full season. I just watched Godzilla vs. Kong today after work, and it's going to be like the Orioles are Kong, the Yankees are Godzilla. Let's go. We can take them.
Yeah, this is definitely exciting. Like, it's real. It's really happening. I'm starting to get super excited for tomorrow. Luckily, normally I take the day off work, but since I'm working from home, I don't have to do that. Hopefully the rain holds off in Boston tomorrow, but other than the Orioles, I mean, tomorrow is just a great day. You can watch Garrett Cole, Ryu, Shane Bieber, Hendricks, Max Fried, Kenta Maeda. I mean, we get to watch all these guys on the same day. So MLB TV is going to be fired up and running all day and all night long tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited about getting this season started, and I think that although the Orioles, probably are looking in the last place finish, I think this is going to be a year where fans can sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel with the rebuild. I think we're going to see a lot of promising results from some of these younger players that are going to be part of the core, hopefully the next contending team here in Baltimore. Put up promising results. So will the standings look great? No, but I don't think that's going to tell the full story in 2021. So to follow along this season, please visit BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. We will have you covered with a lot of Orioles talk from Bob, Nick, and myself, and the team of Orioles analysts that are there. Be sure to hop on the message board to discuss the Orioles, as well as the Ravens and the Terps and some other sports-related news. In addition, you can follow us on Twitter at BSL on the Verge, where we'll have coverage all season long in addition to our weekly podcast. And thank you to Birdland tonight for letting us do the takeover for our live show. But don't forget, you can still listen to our show later as a podcast. So thank you for those who watched tonight, and we're going to really enjoy this season bringing you the news. So for Nick Stevens and Bob Phelan, this is Zach Spedden, and you've been listening to On the Verge.
And